Hey, out there in YouTube land, we are actually going to be working on a hybrid bike that we're going to be building today. I have three old 1970s Yamahas, Enduros, and old dirt bikes that we're going to be combining into one functional racer today. I'm going to be combining a 72 Yamaha LT2, a 74 Yamaha DT100, and a 74 Yamaha CT175. I've got three of these bikes just sitting out in the old boneyard, just out there hanging out. So I thought that I would actually build something functional. It's winter time. It's a little bit slower in the shop, so it seemed like a fun little project to do. I love racing the vintage 100 class. It's my favorite class to ride. I didn't race it all last year, and I kind of miss it. So I'm building me a few racers this year to get back in the spirit of things. So that's our project for today. I'll show you our starting bikes here, and we'll start this project off and go from there. All right, this was the official donor bike, the 1972 LT2. It is a smaller 100cc two-stroke enduro bike, but I had three of these little things in CT1s, which is a 175, and it's got a longer frame, so I'm actually going to take the motor out of this bike, which you can see it's already out of, and put it in the CT1 because it's a longer frame and bigger tires, and just a little bit more adult oriented, and make me a 100cc vintage racer. Alrighty, here's our beast, a 1972. Now, I've already done a little bit of work here, and what we're dealing with right now is just going to take off the stator cover. I've already kind of got all this stuff pseudo pulled off. Most of the time you don't need to take the whole cover off. This particular one has a separate stator case. From there, we've got your flywheel, and we're going to take this nut here off. Just use a little impact here. Now, I had this off earlier, so it should pull right off. Normally, you'll use a flywheel puller, which I do have here. But basically, inside of here, you'll see your points, which are right there. And as the flywheel comes around, it's actually not a complete circle. It's actually a little bit of an oblong on there. And the little lobe's going to come here and hit this particular thing, and that's going to open that up, where you can kind of see it move right there. And every time that opens, it's going to create spark. Problem is moisture. This thing's been sitting for 25-30 years. It hasn't had it. So basically the first thing we're going to do is just get a little bit of sandpaper, and I'm talking just a little bit. I've got a little piece right here. We're going to fold it over so it's got nice. I've got about I think it's a 180 grit, and we're simply going to open that up and slide it in between those two contacts. We're going to stick the sandpaper in between the points contacts and simply just go back and forth, and we're basically going to file those down a little bit, just enough to get a good back and forth. Nothing crazy. Break that old contact and just goo off of there. As you can see, we got a nice little nastiness on both sides. And now we're actually going to test spark. Now, I did just put a brand new coil on this bike and got a new spark plug out here. So we're going to try to test this thing real quick. I'm not going to put the flywheel on all the way right now in order to test it. You just want to make sure that your flywheel key is matched up here. And we're going to slide that back on here. And very important part when you take that off, to make sure that your flywheel key or your Woodruff key does not come off. And I tell you what I am going to do. I am going to just kind of put that nut on there and push that on there. Another moment of truth. I've already taken the spark plug out. I've got it right here, and we're going to go to the other side here and push this little push start down and see if we've got spark. All right, now we're gonna back over here. I have it grounded to the motor. Very important. And I'm gonna see if we got some spark here. I'm gonna try to do this with one hand and hold it. Yep, you can see it spark right there. You hear it popping. Kind of see the little spark on that a little bigger. Every time I rotate around, it opens, you can see it spark. This thing is moving, and I'm trying to do this really closely so you can get a good visual of it. There you go. It's just hard for me to holding it. But you can kind of hear it popping every time. Now we're just going to try to kick it a couple times, and I just squirted some carb cleaner in the back of the carb. Just see if this thing will hit anything at all. Oh, yeah, there it was. All right, so we got spark. It hit. Now it's time to make this thing pretty and fine tune it from there. But 1972 LT2 100cc Yamaha brought back to life with just a little piece of sandpaper and a little bit of time. All right, so here we got the ATV bend bars, and they are slightly different than the vintage bars. I get my bars, most of my bars come from Western Power Sports. I am a Western Power Sports dealer. So I've got a pair of vintage bars on here, on the IT here. And you can see real quickly, they're about 3 inches shorter on both sides. And basically that makes it a lot skinnier of a bike. And I'm gonna be riding this thing. I might even do some cross-country races with this 100cc, I don't know. But they're very similar bends and they're similar heights, but the narrowness makes it a lot easier for me to handle, especially in the woods between trees and so forth, than the wider bars. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount these bars right there on this little booger, find a comfortable seating position for me, and go on to the next step. After that, we're ready to put the throttle on and controls and levers, and which we all have new from Western Power Sports as well, and Fly Racing and Firepower. So we're going to hit all these things and get it back up and bring this old beast back to life and have me a vintage racer, hopefully by the end of the week. So we'll go from there. Okay, YouTubers, I am back. Todd the Scooter Man Rap, but I'm working on a 1972 and 74. Basically, it's a hybrid bike. We're going to Frankenstein one together. And I just put the bars on there, but I'm just kind of show you what I do. I just use some good old-fashioned matte black heat-resistant spray paint, and I actually use Ace Hardware's indoor, outdoor, that right there. But I do get the satin black. I like the satin black instead of that. Basically, I'm not going hardcore on this rebuild. It's just going to be something good, functional racer. But as you can see by the risers and the nuts and the hardware there, they're just a little bit dirty. So all I'm going to do basically is touch these up. And I'll probably touch the front of the forks up too, because they are pitted really well. And yes, I could do that, but it's just as easy to mask it off and make a good functional bike. Just kind of missed it a little bit. I always mask everything off to where now, if you look at it, doesn't look crazy, but you know, it's respectful looking. And in the meantime, what I did was I put the front fender on. It had this weird looking front fender mount, which looks like it's fabricated, but I did have an old vintage yellow fender on there, kind of a Preston Petty, kind of repop looking thing. But got it mounted yesterday, and I actually painted the forks from the triple tree, the bottom of the triple tree, all the way up. This is all going to be covered by a number plate. Not that big of a deal, but the forks themselves were pitted pretty good. So now I just got to really, honestly, just get a little steel wool out and hit that 2 or 3 inches on the top of the fork leg, and that should be functional. So bottom line is, now I've got a fairly functional bike with brand new bars on it. I like the rise on it. Again, these are the ATV bars, the high ATV bars by Western Power Sports or Fly Racing. Part number is that right now. I like them on the vintage bikes because the handlebars are a lot thinner. There's going to be 6 inches shorter as opposed to the regular vintage bars, which are really wide. On a small bike like this, is not very comfortable at all to ride. So we got the ATV bars, basically about the same 4-inch rise on it. A little bit of a rake towards you, but if you raise them up, bend it forward a little bit, it's actually a pretty comfortable riding position. So that's this particular segment of this little thing. We've got the front fender mounted, new bars mounted, touched up and painted. I did just basically spray bomb the frame with that Ace Outdoor Satin Black spray paint, about $6 a can. Again, we're on a low budget rebuild here. Got the seat mounted, getting ready to put the tank on, new clutch cable, and just finished building this thing. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll get more as we go along because we got new fenders and tires and wheels coming up next. Thanks a lot. Okay, YouTubers, Todd Rapp, Scooter Man, working on the DT LT2 and a CT1 kind of combination hybrid bike, 100cc vintage 2-stroke. Got the bars on, and now today we're going to basically get the controls set. By controls, I mean front brake cables, clutch cable hooked on, new levers, new throttle. Kind of show you the products that I use, as well as the proper technique or just how to do it. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but it's just something that needs to be done. So I'm using the Shorty levers. I'm going to be using the Shorty levers by Western Power Sports. These are actually Firepower branded. They're actually made by a company called MGO. Very popular aftermarket, inexpensive levers. We've got both the clutch and the brake lever over here. I mean, they came in a Firepower box, but I mean, clearly it says MGO right there. So it's just a rebrand by Western Power Sports. Good budget levers, usually 25 to 30 bucks for a pair. So these are the Shorties. When I'm racing, I like shorter levers. So if I go down, they don't hit outside the bars and you snap your lever off. So there's the Shorties, or I usually ride with basically 2 fingers anyway when I'm racing. So that's just something that's easy to do, and they're shorter and they just work. Again, this is an inexpensive build, so we're just going everything on a budget, and we'll get it fixed up. So first thing we gotta do is we gotta take the little nut off here on the back. And it's just gonna be a nut and that, and then this is just gonna come right on off. Okay, so actually take that screw out, this will come out. Line your 2 little lines up and it'll pop right out. To go back in is the same thing. Just put your cable in there, pull it through. As I try to do this one-handed, and it's gonna have to move a little bit. Yeah, there it goes. Get it set in there, then your lever will go right back in there. It's much easier to do with 2 hands than it is 1 hand. From that point now, we've got clutch lever. It's all on. You take your bolt, stick it on through. Thread it in there with just your finger tight or a 10mm. This is a 10mm bolt. I've got the levers really loose right now, just kind of, so it's a little bit more difficult. Now your clutch is 100% functional. You get a spring back, so I like that. We'll adjust that later on, but for right now, we're just kind of getting everything kind of dry fitted and functional before we put grips on and kill switches and the throttle assembly. But that is the clutch lever, and we'll probably do exactly the same thing on the brake side, but from there we're going to go to the throttle. And that's how you put a throttle cable on or a clutch cable on an old vintage bike. Now these are all cable actuated, so you can get a pair of levers for really, honestly, 25 to 30 bucks. You can get a pair for clutch and brake and get you taken care of on any vintage bike that uses the drum brakes. Thanks a lot. All right, that concludes the first part of this build. We are going to be doing some more coming up here this week. Another part 2, adding the throttle cables, throttle assembly, exhaust, sprockets, the whole bit, finishing the build, get her fired up, and go from there. Probably gonna be a 3-part video, but this is for thanks for basically watching the first part, and subscribe to our channel. We're gonna be building a lot more with scooters and dirt bikes, and this is kind of what I do for a living. So we'll get you fixed up on some inexpensive builds, a way to kind of get back out there in the dirt and have some fun. That's what dirt bikes are for. Thanks a lot for watching.